Well, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the famous, the fantastic, the most awaited EduSmart Professional Development Series. I am your favorite marketing coordinator, Devanshi Mathur, and I will be your MC today and chat monitor for the evening. So please do read all of the lovely messages I have for you, as well as pop in your questions for the Q&A that we will be hosting with you all at the very end. Today, we have a power team with us today. They are certainly the rock stars of science education. You may have been there in line for their jam-packed presentations at CAST last year, or you may have attended their popular training sessions that they have hosted through their 20 plus years in education leadership. Even though we are all remote, if you can please give your grandest holler for the dream team, Gelyn and Betty. Woohoo!
Thank you very much, Devanshi, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon as we make the case for why reading and science are better together, or science and reading are better together. So thank you for spending your afternoon with us. So with that said, we know that reading is critical for students to learn and make sense of science content. I think everybody that's in the room probably realizes that. We know that it's a complex and multifaceted process that involves word recognition, comprehension, fluency, and motivation. So in this session, you will be learning reading strategies that will help improve your students' understanding of scientific concepts. So I know Devanshi did a really amazing introduction of the two of us, but Betty and I have been in education, like Devanshi said, for over 20 years, and really our commitment to teaching and learning science and STEM just really is always at the forefront of what we do. So in the bulk of our 20 years as educators, we have been, we have spent time working in a school district that is very highly diverse. We work in a school district with, like I said, a highly diverse population with over 80 languages spoken and about 85% economically disadvantaged. So we have been classroom teachers, science and technology specialists at one point, and in our district, science specialists are actually also instructional coaches. And then right now we are working at the district level to really support teaching and learning science. So I just want to give you a picture of the diversity that we have come across in our 20 years of education and why really reading in science matters. Okay, so to preface our conversation about the importance of reading in science, I feel that it's important to have a common understanding of like what literacy is. So traditionally, we know that, or we think of literacy as the ability to read and write, but beyond that, or there is more to that. Literacy is a means of identification, understanding, interpretation, creation, and communication in an increasingly digital, text-mediated, information-rich, and fast-changing world. So with that said, we're going to go into a quick exercise. I'm going to turn over the mic to Betty.
Okay, so this activity that we're going to do is one of Dr. Spencer Kagan's cooperative learning strategies. That in a classroom, this is how it would look like. So the kids, you play music, the kids would go around the room when the music stops. They would partner up with someone who's closest to them. Okay, so you're getting them in groups as partners. If someone doesn't have a partner, they raise their hand, they look around the room to find a partner. Then one partner becomes letter A, and then the other person becomes letter B. And they are responding to a question, which we're going to do in a second. So you have the kids respond to the question. Partner A goes first, partner B is listening, and then partner B responds to the question while partner A listens. Okay, so this is one strategy to use in your classroom, but for the sake of today, since we are virtual, we are going to tweak this to make it more virtual friendly. So instead, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms with a partner. So that way one of you will be partner A and one of you will be partner B. When you see in the chat in a moment, the prompt is going to be put there, and partner A will go first, respond to the prompt, and then partner B will go next. So here is your prompt that you're going to discuss. So your first question is that you're going to talk about with your partner is, what is reading? The second question is reading important in science? Why or why not? Now, we gave you language supports as in sentence stems in case you need some extra language support in communicating with your partner. This is something that you can do with your students as well. So what is reading? Partner A will answer that. You can decide as a group, as partners, is partner A going to respond to what is reading and is reading important in science, and then partner B will go, or partner A will do what is reading, partner B will say what is reading, and then partner A will go back to is reading important in science, why or why not. But in your breakout room, you're going to discuss those two prompts. What is reading and is reading important in science, why or why not? We're going to give you guys roughly about 2 minutes with your partner to have those discussions, and then we're going to come back to the whole group, and I'm going to ask a couple of you to share what you talked about in your breakout rooms.
And we're back.
Okay, so if I could have maybe two or three of you unmute yourselves and just respond to the prompt about what you guys talked about. What is reading, or is reading important in science, why or why not?
This is Arlene. I thought Whitney and I had a good conversation. Whitney, do you want to explain what reading is? Like you explained to me, and then I'll explain why reading is important in science. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, you're fine. Yes, ma'am. So what I was saying that reading was to me is that it's like the action or the skill of reading a written language that has been printed, either silently or out loud with comprehension and fluency.
Thank you. And then I took it a little further and I explained the importance of reading in science includes being able to understand the content that's being presented, but I also interpret the importance of understand the importance of reading is to be able to understand the charts, the graphs, the diagrams that are so important when we gather data. So I look at visual literacy, if you will, as an important part of what this is all about. Also, I look at literacy in science as being able to bring all the subject areas together, because we are able to make sense of our world through what we observe, and that is in language, math, social studies, even all together through the conduit of science. That's my feedback, and I appreciated Whitney's as well. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you, Arlene and Whitney. Appreciate that. Is anyone else burning to talk about what they talked about in their breakout group?
When I talked about why reading was important, I think I realized that one of the skills in reading is drawing conclusions. And so when you're, looking at science content or data in particular, then you're drawing conclusions there, and you have to learn vocabulary to really be successful also in science. And so those are kind of the two main things that stuck out to me.
Good. Thank you, Edna. Okay.
Okay, so that was really good. So when we think about reading, really, like to sum up what you guys or what all of you said, or at least the ones that shared, reading is really making meaning from print or text, whether it's in a paper format or a digital format. So the purpose of reading is really making meaning. Whether you're analyzing, synthesizing, drawing conclusion, that is the be all and end all of reading. So to make sense of what you're reading, or the print or the text. So we want to highlight several things here because we want to show how kids interact with different types of texts, or not really print, because text can be printed or digital. So in the upper left, you see like maybe a student still trying to get to know phonics or like phonemic awareness. So there are 5 principles of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So in these pictures right here in the upper left, like I said, probably most likely phonemic awareness or phonics. That child is still learning how to read. On the right, the upper right, like you probably, it's probably a child that are already comfortable with reading. And as you can see, this child is really reading on an ebook, maybe an ebook, like on a digital platform. So there's many ways to like read, especially at this time. And then you also have this boy here, probably comfortable with reading, but reading a printed text. And then in the middle, you have a teacher that's really helping kids to make sense of like what they are reading. So in a guided reading group, you probably will see this in like lower grades. And when we think reading, we might think, you know, you use your eyes, you use your ears, you use your mouth, like you speak and all of that, but really reading is also sensory. When we think of blind people, like we think of like the Braille system, and the Braille system is really a system of touch for reading and writing for blind people. So we want to be all inclusive when we think and when we teach reading in science. So with that being said, thumbs up if you said that. You can use your reaction button, or you can just use your thumbs, like thumbs up, if you said that reading is a multifaceted process. It involves word recognition, comprehension, awesome, fluency, and motivation. So it involves identifying the words in print or digital content, which is called word recognition. It involves constructing an understanding from them, which is comprehension. And it involves, this is very, very, very important, coordinate identifying words and making meaning so that reading is automatic and accurate. So that's very important, and that is what we call fluency. So like we said, it's a complex process and it involves many things. So thumbs up if you got all of those. Awesome. So how do you start the conversation of building classrooms where students feel safe exploring new ways of thinking about reading? So I'm gonna turn the mic over to Betty.
Okay, so let's talk about how we start. So the most important thing is to create a classroom environment where your children, your students feel safe to take risks and explore their reading, whether or not they are struggling readers, on grade level readers, or above grade level readers. It still needs to be a very safe environment for them to be able to grow and to learn. So one thing is you want to make sure that you talk to your kids about what do good readers do. Kids don't know what good readers do. They see people reading and they assume that reading is just looking at the text and being able to read it. If you understand it, if you don't understand it, if I get it, okay, if I don't get it, okay, I'm just going to keep going. But they have to understand that they have to learn how to monitor their own comprehension. That if I get to the end of a paragraph and I have no idea what I read, then either the text was way too hard, or I need to put in some strategies to go back and chunk or decode what I read to be able to figure out what that text or that paragraph was actually talking about. So kids don't know how to monitor their own comprehension. So that is our job. We need to show them how to self-monitor. Okay. And then with that self-monitoring, we provide them strategies or tools in order for them to, when they get to an unfamiliar word or they get to the end of a sentence and they don't know what that means, they know how to think about what they are reading to better understand exactly what that text is having them understand. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about finding meanings of new words. So something that you do with kids is make them feel comfortable that as adults, we all have strategies in place that we use when we come to a word or we get to an end of a paragraph that we don't, and we did not understand what we read. Okay, we as adults, we have those strategies and tools in place. Kids don't have that. So ask them, you know, when you get to a word that you don't know, or you get to the end of a sentence and how many times you have to read it like 10 times and you still don't understand what it's saying. That's okay, that's normal. And especially with science, it is even harder because you're talking about scientific vocabularies and scientific terms. So it is a little more challenging to understand a text. But what's great about science-related texts is that the authors will usually give the reader clues on what different academic vocabulary is, what it means. So it will help them, students, it'll help them be able to better understand what the text or the paragraph is referring to by these clues. Okay, so that's just something that we have to do with kids, is we have to teach them what those clues are. So let's go over some of the clues. So one clue is that an author might use the word called, or which means, or which is. Okay, for example, how is that possible? Simple. Water is recycled through a process called the water cycle. So kids understand that the water cycle is how water is recycled, and it's a process. Okay, so the author will use the clue of the word called, which means, or which is, which helps the reader understand what that academic vocabulary word is. Okay, another clue is that the author will include it'll have the word or and a comma, and it'll tell you in between the commas what that word means. So for example, you have learned that water can change its form or state based on its temperature. So the student reading it knows that form and state, that's what they mean. It means the same thing, okay? Or the author might give you a sentence after the word, after the academic vocabulary word, they might give you a sentence that tells you the definition of that word, okay? So we're going to go ahead and practice for a minute so you guys have some exposure to this. So if you're doing this with your students, which we hope you will practice with your students, have your kids watch and look for new words and their definitions. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the EduSmart Science Reader called the water cycle. Okay, and it's going to be dropped in the chat so you can look at it. You're going to look for these 3 academic scientific vocabulary terms: evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Okay, I want you to look for how is the author giving you clues on what does evaporation mean, on what does condensation mean, and what does precipitation mean. Okay. So on what Devanshi put in the chat is going to be a PDF of in case you forget the signal words or the clues, that PDF will have those signal words on it. So you can pull that up and you can, as you look through the EduSmart reader. Let me show you what the EduSmart reader looks like. You can pull that up. Give us 1 second. Okay, so that's what the reader looks like. Okay, and you will see an example that's posted by Dr. Roble on the side there. So in her example, it says in the first paragraph, the author uses the word called in the very last sentence where it says water is recycled through a process called the water cycle. Okay, so remember, you're looking for just the 3 scientific academic vocabulary words. You're looking for evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Okay, how you're going to annotate is on the right side of it. You're going to see a plus, and that'll say add a comment. So you're going to write out your comment of how the author gives you a clue what condensation, evaporation, and precipitation means. Okay, so there's a page 1, and then if you go down, there's another page along with it too. So really just look for those 3 words and identify how the author signals you or gives you a clue on what those 3 terms mean, and then just annotate it in the comment button. I'm going to give you guys about 2 minutes. I know that's not too long of a time, but even if you just get 1 done, that's fine. We just want you to have some practice in doing this so you can, so you know how to do it with your own students.
For some of you, you may be having issues editing, leaving a comment on this document because they're asking you to request editing access. Feel free to leave your comments in the chat, and Gelyn and Betty can read your comments from there.
Okay, give you guys about 60 more seconds. Okay, I'm seeing the signal words of using the word called. The energy from the sun causes liquid water to change into water vapor. This process is called. And it seems very natural for us, but we're adults and we've had a number of years of practicing reading and using our comprehension to understand the text. Kids haven't had that many years like we have. So this seems like a very natural process for us when we are looking for vocabulary, key academic vocabulary terms in defining them. But for kids, they have to be specific. You have to teach them how. Okay, look for this. What clue is the author giving you? So I'm glad that you guys got this and that you have you had some experience in being able to identify at least one of the clues that is called, so you can better support your kids in you teaching them how to look for those clue words or those keywords to help them better understand the text as well. Okay. So if you have an EduSmart account, and we'll talk about this more toward the end if you have questions about it. But they also have an accessibility feature that there also are accessibility features. Now, with reading, we don't want their ability to read to deter them from reading about science. Okay, we have so many times we hear my student in 4th grade is reading on a 2nd grade level. He can't read this. Or my kid in 3rd grade is reading on a kindergarten level. He can't read this. Okay, so we don't want that to get in the way, to become an obstacle of them learning science, because what EduSmart has in there is they have accessibility features such as text to speech. Okay, so it will read the readers to you. So the kid who is reading below level, who struggles with reading, can still read the text, and the text will just be read to him, and the student can just follow along as it's highlighted to help them learn science. Okay, so that's just one accessibility feature as well. We can show you how it looks like on EduSmart later on if you don't have an account or if you're not familiar with this feature. Some other thing that some of your districts may have is called Snap and Read and Co-Writer. That also is an accessibility feature that helps kids, that supports kids in their reading to make it more accessible for them as well. So at the end, if you are interested in that or your district has that, we can talk about that later as well. I just wanted to point out that just because your student is reading below level does not mean that they can't learn science through reading. Okay, we want to make sure that those accessibility features are provided to all students.
Okay, so Betty walked you through one strategy, which is finding the meaning of a new word. So we are going to talk to you, to add 2 more reading strategies to your toolbox. So you already have finding meaning of the new word. To add to that, we will talk about text signals and comprehension coding. So text signals, we know that expository texts, nonfiction texts often include keywords that signal what the reader can expect to find in the next few phrases or sentences. So for example, you need to be very explicit. You have to directly teach kids to pay attention to words such as following, previously, during, because those words indicate that a timeline is given. And in science, we talk about timelines. Words such as like, including, such as, for instance, that signals that a reader, that tells the reader that examples are given. So that's another set of words that you need to tell kids or help kids point their attention to. So that's very, very important in expository text. Others are words that signal cause and effect. So words such as a result, therefore, often indicates cause and effect. So for example, when you talk about cause and effect, you have a relationship between 2 phenomena. So an example would be an oil spill causes crude oil to spill into water. As a result, so pay attention to that phrase, many plants and animals in the water die. So there is that signals cause and effect. Now, another set of words would be talking about or signals the reader that a comparison is being made. So words like similarly, in the same way, just like, just as, likewise, and also signal comparison. So for example, rubber is an insulator, just like wood, plastic, paper, and glass. Right? So that signals comparison. And then you also have contrast words such as however, in contrast, on the other hand, instead, but yet, sometimes indicate contrast. So we talked about examples of insulators. Now, in contrast, rubber, when we say rubber, wood, plants, paper, and glasses are examples of insulator, whereas steel, aluminum, iron, copper are examples of conductors. I was waiting for you to tell me the answer, but I forgot you were all muted. So that signals, you know, we talk about insulators and conductors so much in science. So words, it's very important that we help kids really pay attention to text signals. So you have cause and effect, comparison, and then contrasts. Then we also will add comprehension coding into your toolbox. So for instance, if you are asking kids to read the passage, The Water Cycle, which you just read, which it talks about the continuous cycle of the water within the earth, student can use the following codes to show what they're thinking as they are reading. So you can use, you can ask students to mark codes to indicate what they are thinking as they read. And this serves two purposes. The first one is really for kids to monitor their thinking. So we have this thing that we called metacognition, thinking about your thinking in reading. So for them to monitor their thinking as they are reading, it is important that we help them using comprehension coding. So an example would be like an exclamation point saying, this is important, or check, you know, I knew that because we did that during our explore. So now that we're reading is during explain and elaborate, I think I already am making the connection. So I know that. And then X would be, this is different than what I thought. That could be like a signal, you know, for preconceptions or misconceptions. So pay attention to that as a teacher, and question mark for I don't understand. So like I said, it serves two purposes. One is for kids to monitor their thinking. The other one is for teachers to formatively assess. So it tells you where kids are in their understanding of the content based on the comprehension codes that they're using as they are reading. So it's important that as kids are reading, teachers are monitoring the room and paying attention to the codes that kids are using. So to sum up the different strategies that we use today, we have three. We have finding meaning of a new word or of a new word. We have paying attention to text signals and using comprehension codes. So we hope that by the time you really, like, you can start tomorrow, you can use one of the reading strategies to implement in your classroom. So why reading in science? Because to be an, like we said earlier, we want to make the case for why reading and science are better together, or science and reading are better together, because to be an accomplished scientist, or for a student to be just a critical thinker and a problem solver, one needs to develop strong literacy skills. The science or the STEM disciplines require interpretation of technical texts, really complex text, a vast knowledge of content-specific vocabulary, critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and the ability to clearly communicate complex concepts to others verbally and in writing. So hopefully that helps establish why reading is very important in science.
And real quickly, before you move on, I want to also point out in the comprehension coding, if you're teaching your kids comprehension, the codes, do you mind going back one
Yes,
slide?
yes.
In this one, if you are a blocked teacher, so you have a partner teacher who is ELAR, they may already have comprehension codes that they are teaching your children, your students. So I would highly discourage you from teaching them two different codes, because that will be confusing for the student. So if your student Johnny is in your ELAR, your reading language arts teacher's classroom, and a check mark means I don't know, this is different from what I thought, but in your room, a check mark means I knew that. That's going to confuse the kids. So if your ELAR partner teacher already has codes that they have been using all year with your students, I would highly suggest that you maximize using those codes, because the kids are already familiar with it, and they can easily or seamlessly integrate it in their reading and science class because they're already comfortable using those codes. Okay, so to end today, we're going to have you do a quick exit ticket, kind of like a 4-minute assessment. It's called tag. Okay, you're going to, in the chat, tell us something that you liked, ask a question, And then give an example of a reading strategy that you have used in science. So T, tell something that you liked. A, ask a question. And the question we'll get to when you ask a question, we will get to that later in the Q&A. And then the G is give an example of a reading strategy that you have used in science. We're going to give you guys about 2 minutes to tag in the chat.
As the 2-minute timer is going, I thought I'd read some of the comments in. We have for the tell, as a first-year teacher, I'm liking the signal note taking. I like the codes that you presented for the student to use when they are reading. Adults already know most of these skills intuitively. Students have to learn them. I do not have a question. I've used comprehension codes in science. I like the signal note taking. I really like the emphasis on understanding words that suggest cause and effect, compare and contrast. We will come back to the questions for the Q&A. I liked how the text signals words that were listed in the table along with the connection to the main idea that is being presented in science. And lastly, I've used the coding for other texts, but never in science. I will definitely try that now. We have more coming in, but just a few to fill the silence.
Well, that was time. Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on. So we wanted to share how we use the EduSmart reader, the water cycle, and where we found it. So if you have an EduSmart account, they are readers. So you would just log into your account, go to the content library, select the grade level. And the good thing about EduSmart 2 is that it is also in Spanish. So if you need the text in Spanish, it's also available too. And so that's where you can find the reader. If you don't have an EduSmart account, you can always request a free trial access at edusmart.com. And then you can kind of explore all the features and everything that they have available to you.
So with that said, this page highlights the references, at least like where we got a whole lot of information. And I really want to give credit to the first person on this reference, because a lot of the strategies that we talked about really is from her book, Once Upon an Earth Science book. So it's an NSCA book that really talks about the importance of reading in science. So I haven't met the lady. I hope one day I will, but really, it's very helpful if you're a science teacher that really wants to hone in on or focus on the importance of reading in understanding complex text. And then the rest will be helpful as you delve deeper into the concept of reading and science better together, or science and reading better together. Okay, so we want to give you a plug, or is that right? I said that right? So come and join us in 2 weeks. So we actually have a series. This is our first one. And our second one will be on Wednesday, May 25th. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's on encouraging student talk. So like we said, building language, we talk a whole lot already about literacy, but we want to go deeper into building language and literacy being key in helping students communicate science ideas, both orally and in writing. So you will learn ways to structure your time during instruction for students to encourage purposeful and meaningful conversations. So like we said earlier, literacy has a whole lot to do with listening, speaking, reading, and writing, so that encouraging student talk, being able to communicate in a safe environment will be helpful as we continue to build, students that are strong in both science and STEM. Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gelyn and Betty, for this wonderful presentation that you've put together. Everyone's clapping in their screens. I can see it. Someone's throwing confetti. There's a band going on somewhere. But with the most sincerity, thank you so much for putting this presentation together and for taking the time to really lay out this very fundamental kind of skill, but in a way that, especially some of us in this chat have shared that they're new teachers, and quite helpful. So we end the session at 50, so we have a few minutes for some Q&As if you're ready. So the first one that we got a lot sent for me was if some people have come into this session late, or they had some technical difficulties. I'm going to go ahead and take that question. If you were late today or had some technical difficulties, or if you just weren't able to make today's presentation, do not fear. Next week, all of those who have registered for the webinar will be receiving a copy of the recording, a copy of the slide deck, as well as instructions on how to get your attendance certificate for this presentation. Okay, so the next set of questions. Oh, I lost my spot.
I like the comment that says, I like the fact that the ideas are simple but so practical. If you just try these 3 strategies in your classroom, you're going to see like
A difference.
a difference. Yeah, it's exciting.
Absolutely. So the first question we had was, can this topic be spiraled into elementary science class?
Definitely. So, as you progress in pre-elementary, primary grades into like intermediate grades, the text becomes complex or it gets harder, quote unquote, but already starting cause and effect, or talking about cause and effect and how that looks like in trade books or in children's books. I know someone said or made a comment about if you're using children's book, like you can point that out already, and you can do that in primary grades. And then as you move up into the higher grades, the text becomes more complex. You probably have like articles, passages, but you still find like comparing and contrasting. You still find what did we talk about? Cause and effect. So definitely, the earlier you start kids and the earlier you sort of like integrate the direct teaching of these text signals of like comprehension coding, the better.
Thank you. Our next question is, I'm not comfortable with EduSmart and would like more information. Whitney, I can take that question for you. I have your email address since you've registered for this webinar. I can go ahead and send you more information. But as Gelyn and Betty have explained, you can also hop onto our website and get a free trial. That way you can kind of, before I even reach out to you, have a moment to play with our LMS a little bit. And then I'll make sure someone from our team reaches out to you to get you kind of the walkthrough that you need.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a first-year teacher, and my district just recently bought EduSmart, so it's inside our curriculum. So I just don't know how to navigate it 100%. And I don't plan science. We have a partner planning, and so I plan math, and so it's been hard for me to, I guess, understand the platform.
That completely makes sense.
Could I this afternoon?
Yeah.
It's very proactive of you.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that. So what I will go ahead and do, and if you're also interested, please leave if there's any other people in our attendance today that would like kind of some additional guidance on how to use your EduSmart subscription, just leave your name or a comment, and I'll make sure to reach out to you at some point this week, or have someone from our team reach out to you to help you get that guidance that you need with our program. And let's see what other questions we have. If a student needs decoding strategies, would you teach these strategies to the students as well?
So I'm thinking like for the primary grades, there's, I mean, across the board, we do, like Betty pointed out earlier, like you might have a fourth grader that is still struggling to read. So you might use text to speech for that. But yes, you would still teach these strategies to a student like learning about decoding or still in the decoding stage. Because like, let's say, for instance, if you're using like picture books, you're thinking out loud. So you're pointing and you're helping kids understand the structure of print or understand an article or a passage like in a digital format. So do not take that away from exposing the kids to these strategies, even if they're still in the decoding stage, because the more that they are exposed to the different reading strategies, the more that they will probably or most likely like move forward with reading. Do you have something else to add?
Okay, and we have time for just one more question. Would you still teach these strategies to a student that needs decoding strategies?
I think that was what I answered.
Oh, perfect. That was awesome. Well, then that we do have some more questions, but that does put us at time for today. I will go through all the questions that we didn't answer and forward them to Gelyn and Betty, but as they've already shared with you, you can find them on Twitter. And if you haven't followed them on Twitter yet, I highly, highly recommend. They have some good content. Also, while we're at it, you should also follow EduSmart. EduSmart also has some good content.
You can follow Gelyn, Betty, and EduSmart if you haven't.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Betty and I will really appreciate like positive comments on Twitter. We kind of we call the Twitter universe, Twitterverse, like as a way to celebrate teaching and learning. So the more that we can celebrate teaching and learning, especially in science and STEM, the better. So the more advocates we have out there, the better. So please do tweet us if you are on Twitter.
Your fans want to know, do you have an Insta?
My Instagram is personal. I only have pictures of my 4-year-old there, so I don't think you want to follow that one.
I am putting EduSmart's Instagram. There are no cute 4-year-olds in that.
Yeah.
But
we might create one for the purpose of advocating the good work that we're all collectively wanting to do or continuing to do. So I really appreciate your time. We appreciate your time this afternoon, because the more the merrier.
Absolutely. And on behalf of EduSmart, thank you, Gelyn and Betty, for taking time out of your busy week and it's testing season to sit with us and kind of share your knowledge nuggets with all of us. And on top of that, from all of us here, we want to thank everyone who's joining us here today. If you're watching this later on in a recording, or for all of those who are here in person with us, thank you so much for joining us today. We know you have a very busy week. We know you have so much going on. And the fact that you're taking time to learn all of these new skills and strategies and doing all of this hard work for your students, it's not going unnoticed. We very much admire you. So a huge round of applause to all of you teachers and to our presenters today. From all of us here at EduSmart, we're going to sign off, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the very last webinar of this school year. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, and I hope you all have just the most wonderful Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.